We're diving deep into Iran today because the country is right on the brink of a massive revolution. And we have to ask, why is this time so different from all the protests we've seen before? I mean, things are so serious that there are reports, actual reports, of an escape plan for the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. We're talking about a plane ready to whisk him off to Moscow. So you have to wonder, how on earth did the regime get to this breaking point?
And to really get what's going on, you have to put yourself in their shoes. What would make millions of people pour into the streets, knowing they're facing security forces armed with live ammunition? What is driving them to take that kind of risk?
Okay, so let's start with what's happening on the ground right now. Protests have just exploded in hundreds of cities. And believe me, this isn't like anything Iran has ever seen before. The scale is it's huge. We're seeing demonstrators literally tearing down statues of regime heroes. And for the first time in decades, you're hearing chants in the streets that aren't just calling for reform. No, this time they want a complete and total overthrow of the entire system. But, Iran has been here before, right? We've seen massive protest movements in the past. The regime has this long, bloody history of surviving popular uprisings. So the big question remains, what makes this one different? I mean, we've all seen this cycle play out. Think back to 2009. That was all about fair elections. Then in 2019, you had the economic protests that led to that horrific, bloody November crackdown, where over 1,000 people were killed. And of course, in 2022, that incredible movement for social freedom just exploded onto the scene. And yet, every single time, the outcome was the same: brutal repression, and the regime survived. Yeah, those 2022 protests sparked by the absolutely tragic death of Mahsa Amini. I mean, they were led by these incredibly brave young women just fighting for basic freedoms. And they showed the entire world just how unpopular the regime really is. But even that massive global uprising, it ultimately failed to break its hold on power. So you see the pattern. All of these powerful movements, they failed to bring down the government. Which brings us back to that crucial question, what is different this time? What has fundamentally, truly changed? Well, the answer, it turns out, isn't really political or even social. It's economic. And it involves a group that for more than 40 years has been the regime's most loyal, most reliable pillar of support. So let's talk about the Bazaris. These are Iran's powerful, traditionally conservative merchant class. You have to understand, their support was essential for the Ayatollah's revolution back in 1979. And for the next 4 decades, they were arguably the regime's most loyal supporters. But then in late 2025, that loyalty just shattered. I mean, they didn't just join the protests. They shut down their shops in Tehran's Grand Bazaar, and they started them. And that, right there, that changed absolutely everything. So why? What was the motivation? Well, this wasn't about ideology. It was about something much more basic: pure economic survival. I mean, just look at the official numbers, and they are grim. The government itself, the regime, is admitting that inflation has skyrocketed past 50%. And get this, for the price of food, it's an unbelievable 70%. For the bazaars, for pretty much everyone, this means your savings are being completely wiped out. Your entire livelihood is just disappearing. And at the very heart of this crisis is the complete, catastrophic freefall of the currency. In just a few short years, the Iranian rial has lost almost all of its value. It's become practically worthless. And this really shows you the fundamental shift we're talking about. Past protests were led by students demanding freedom. Today, they're being led by merchants who are just demanding a future. And when any regime loses the support of the middle class, the very people it relies on for stability, well, that's when you're looking at a true existential crisis. So, with the regime's oldest allies turning their backs, a really old idea is making a shocking comeback. An alternative that people are now actually chanting for in the streets. And it's pretty stunning. People are calling for the return of the monarchy. Yes, the monarchy. The very system that was overthrown in the Islamic Revolution back in 1979. And the focus of these calls is this man, Reza Pahlavi. He's the exiled son of Iran's last Shah. He lives in the United States now, and he's basically said he's ready to help guide Iran through a transition to bring it back toward democracy. But here's the thing. His father's rule is a really complicated memory for Iranians. On the one hand, for some people, it represents a time of secularism, more personal freedoms, and good relations with the West.
But on the other hand, for a lot of people, it was defined by authoritarian rule and a brutal secret police that just crushed any and all dissent. And that division is exactly why the opposition isn't totally united behind him.
Okay, so all of this brings us right back to today, and to the incredibly dangerous standoff that is going to decide Iran's future. Look, the Ayatollah still has the loyalty of his security forces, and that's key, especially the elite Revolutionary Guards. But you've got external powers like the US and Israel just watching, waiting for any sign of weakness. And all the while, the collapsing economy just keeps pouring gasoline on the fire. So this is really the ultimate standoff, isn't it? The regime holds the guns, but the merchants, the people who hold the economy, are now in open rebellion. It really is like that classic paradox, an immovable object meeting an unstoppable force. And that leaves us with the final, nail-biting question. Will the regime's iron fist manage to crush this rebellion one more time, or has the economic collapse finally, fatally broken its grip? You know, the regime has survived every other challenge it's ever faced, but it has never lost its economic bedrock before, and that makes what's happening in Iran right now one of the most critical and unpredictable stories to watch in the entire world.